got an email from a woman named Lynn who told me she saw one of my psychotic roommate story times and wanted to share her story about being a live-in nanny for a very wealthy family in Aspen, Colorado. The wife apparently was very popular or is very popular on social media, and the husband is just like quietly probably a billionaire. She says she doesn't know how much money they had, but it was a lot, and their behavior is nothing short of just outrageous. So I don't really know what to make of this, but I'm just going to tell you what she said in her email. So she has said she's not originally from this country, but she's very Americanized. She's been here for a long time. And it was always part of her plan that she was going to be a live-in nanny. She'd been doing it for a long time and was looking for a new host family. So one of her friends put her in contact with a woman that she knew through her employer, and she goes to interview with this woman. The house is nothing short of a mansion. It's tucked into the mountains with giant glass windows, and the house is pristine, beautiful. She said walking in, it felt like a movie set. There was no sign of life that anyone actually lived there. She meets the husband and the wife. They tell her they have 2 children. They tell her that they are pretty strict. They have a lot of rules in the household, and the husband is not really talking throughout this whole thing while the wife is talking. And she asks her about her experience as a nanny. She asks her very personal questions like, does she have a boyfriend? Does she keep a diary? How often does she talk to her family? The woman tells her if she takes the job that she will have 2 weeks paid vacation, but that she's not allowed to have any outside guests at the house ever. The woman tells her they travel a lot. She asks if she has a valid passport, and she says that she'll be expected to make all of the trips with the family as they deem appropriate. Lynn said the pay was pretty modest considering the scale of their wealth, but it seemed like a pretty good deal, so she accepts the job. She meets their kids. They're a boy and a girl. They're about 5 and 9, and the kids are quiet throughout the entire introductory process. They barely say anything besides hi. When she moves in, she's handed a list of rules and regulations for the children that she's expected to follow. The rules at first seemed pretty crunchy, Aspen mommy, as she described it. Things like no sugar, no toys with noise, no TV, no screen time. There's also a few things on the list that Lynn described as a little bit odd. One thing was no red foods, not red dye, no red foods, because the mom said that they stain. So no red meat, no red apples, no red onions. Also, no foods that had ever at any point been packaged in plastic. Also on the list is no storytelling and no conversations that have not already been approved by the mother. I asked the mother what she means by this, and the mother tells her, don't talk to them about anything that I haven't already approved. So I'll give you a list of all of the conversation topics that you're allowed to answer questions on. If it's not that, default to me. She also tells her that the children both must be in bed by 7:12 p.m. and not a minute later. Lynn was disciplined a lot while living with this family. She said the first time it happened was a few weeks after she moved in. The 9-year-old girl didn't know how to tie her shoes, so Lynn was trying to show her when the mom walks in the room and she says, what are you doing? And she says, I'm trying to teach her how to tie her shoes. And the mother said, I gave you a list of what you were allowed to teach them and what you were allowed to talk to them about, and tying her shoes is not on it. I have a parenting plan. That's not part of it. Please stop. So Lynn stopped. She said the children were extremely well behaved and very, very quiet. Not like any kids that she had nannied before. But she gets called into the mother's office, and the mother basically rips into her and tells her, like, you need to take these rules and regulations that I gave you seriously. And Lynn apologizes, and she says she will. She said basically it wasn't her place to determine how to parent. They weren't her kids. So even though it felt a little bit more like training a dog than it did like raising a child, she decided that she was just going to take the mother's word for it. At this point in her email, Lynn also mentioned that there was a wing of the house that was padlocked and nobody was allowed back there. When Lynn asked the mother what was behind there, she just said it was storage, and even the children weren't allowed to go back there and not to worry about it. Sometimes the parents would have company and they would all bring them to the storage area of the house at night, but Lynn was in her room, and honestly it wasn't her business, so she didn't really mind. She said another strange thing the mother did was sometimes she would be in the children's bedrooms like at night reading them a bedtime story, and she would notice the mother would just be like standing outside their bedroom doors like watching. She was never smiling, she was just staring at them, and sometimes she would say, I'll take it from here, and she would put them to bed herself. She said playing with the children was strange also. Like, the children didn't play on their own. It was like they were always waiting for instruction on what to do. Lynn tried to encourage them to use their imagination, but they would just stare at her and say, what should we do next? One night, the older girl, the 9-year-old, wakes up in the middle of the night and she's screaming, and Lynn goes into her room to comfort her, and she tells her that there's a woman with a glass face standing in the garden. She brings this up to the mother the next day, and the mother just tells her, yeah, we know about the lady with the glass face, don't worry about it. The older daughter's nightmares or seeing the woman with the glass face continues. She keeps complaining about it, and Lynn is growing more and more concerned for her. She thinks she's got like some trauma or just something unresolved that causes her to wake up in the middle of the night. So she brings it up to the mother again, and the mother gets angry, and she says, I told you not to talk to me about it. We know about it. It's being dealt with. Lynn is disciplined again a few weeks later when one night she wakes up in the middle of the night. She's thirsty. She goes to the kitchen, and she was told when she was hired that basically she got a grocery allowance, but she notices there's like a glass jar of ginger juice in the fridge, and she takes a drink of it because she thinks it'll help settle her stomach. I guess she wasn't feeling well. I don't know. She hears noise coming from the padlocked wing of the house, so she walks over. And she described the noise as chanting from a large group of people. She doesn't really know what to make of it, so she just goes back to bed. The next day, she's called into the mother's office again. The mother lectures her on waking up in the middle of the night. She says she's expected to sleep through the night. She also tells her the ginger juice was not part of her grocery allowance, and she will be docking the cost of the glass of juice that she had from her paycheck. Lynn said she wasn't expected to keep up with chores around the house. They had a different staff for that. But one day the mother tells her she needs help setting up the dining table. So Lynn begins to set the dining room for company, and the mother says no in this part of the house, and she brings her back, opens the padlock, and they go into this other wing of the house, and she said it was like a whole other house in there. There were bedrooms, there was bathrooms, there was a kitchen, and there was a huge dining room with a giant wooden table and a very strange human-like sculpture in the middle of the table. The mother says this is the table we'll be setting, and she shows her a cabinet full of fine china, and she has her set the table for 14 people. The mother tells her that night they're having company and she's expected to attend and sit with the children. So she gives her this new nice black dress. She says, "You're wearing this." And that night, 9 guests arrive and they all sit around the table. Lynn is sitting with the 2 children. The mother tells her beforehand, don't speak unless spoken to. And at one point in the dinner conversation, a man looks at her and then looks at the parents and says, "Why is there an outsider here?" Lynn ignores this comment. She continues tending the children, who don't speak a word throughout the entire dinner. After the dinner, the mother pats her on the back and says, "You did great." She instructs her to take the children to bed as it's 7:10 p.m. She gets them to bed. She goes back down to the kitchen because she's like nosy, and she hears from behind the padlock door that same chant. She says she has absolutely no idea what they were doing, but if anyone has any insight, please let her know. She says she has a million more strange things that happened while she was nannying at this house, but ultimately she quit because she didn't like how the children were being treated. She ultimately felt more like a servant than a paid employee of the family.
I got an email for tonight's true scary story about a girl who said she was haunted by a demon for 13 years. This story is terrifying. I do have to give a trigger warning for the mention of someone unaliving somebody and the mention of schmug use. Tonight's submitter did tell me I could use her real name, and her real name is Christian. It all started when she was 13 years old, when her mom had a near-death experience at the hospital after surgery. Her mother came home thanking her guardian angel for saving her. She even got this little flat angel that she would put on their windowsill that she named Esmeralda, and this angel reminded her of the angel that saved her. Shortly after this thing started happening in their home, like they would walk out the front door and the door would just shut and lock behind them. The TV would turn on by itself and it would turn on to like this static station, and her mom would always say things like, "Oh, it's just Esmeralda playing with us." One day Christian is in her room when suddenly she smells the smell of ammonia and roses, and then she hears this bang, bang, bang on their front door. Apparently her sister got locked out again because the door locked behind her. Christian started noticing the smell more of ammonia and roses, and she also started noticing that every time she was home alone, she would hear the sound of footsteps walking up and down the stairs. They ended up moving into a new home, and this is when things got weirder. They would be sitting in the living room and they would hear footsteps walking up the stairs or just upstairs. And one night Christian is downstairs watching TV and her mom is at work. Well, she's enjoying the TV show that she's watching when she hears Christian in her mom's voice, although her mom is at work. This did scare her, but she ended up just brushing it off. What got scary was that about 2 days later, she was asleep at like 2 o'clock in the morning when she wakes up to her mom calling her name in this whispered panic. Just, "Christian, Christian, Christian, wake up." She wakes up and she's kind of like, what is going on? And then she hears it. Boom, 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 boom. Something is running up the stairs. It stops at her bedroom door and then it just walks into her bedroom door, but not walking slowly. It's boom, 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 boom. Stops at the foot of her bed. Christian is just sitting there absolutely terrified, and then she sees something sit down on her bed. She can't see the actual thing, but she can see the compression of her bed going down. So as she's just sitting there frozen with fear, suddenly this thing gets up, and then you hear that boom, 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 and it's walking into her mom's room. It walks all the way around her mom's bed. It stops, walks back around, walks down the hallway and down the stairs. That was the first time she felt really afraid, and at this time she was digging deeper into her faith and trying to figure out what was going on. This is just the start of some very terrifying events. So a little while down the road, they have this girl move in. They take her in from, I guess she had had a really hard life. Now, after she's been there for a little bit, she ends up opening up to them and admitting to unaliving somebody, selling her soul to the devil, and also having a past history of schmug use. Now, after this girl opens up about this, Christian goes into her room one night, and she walks into her room and she remembers it being absolutely freezing. It was way colder than the rest of the house. And as she's standing in the room, she feels this breath on the back of her neck, and then she hears someone go, "Christian!" She bolted out of that room. She said that after this, the air in the house just felt heavy and thick and wrong. One night, Christian can't sleep, so she goes downstairs and she watches TV in the living room. She's watching TV and everything is fine. Suddenly, the TV just turns to static. It's just like, shh. And she's kind of looking at it like, what is going on? When all of a sudden, this thing just pops out of the TV. She said it was probably the most demonic looking thing she had ever seen, like ever in her entire life, and that its face was very distorted. It had a sharp chin and these super sharp teeth, and it just screeched her name and then were cloosed back into the TV. She said this thing looked like this, like it looked very similar to this. At this point, Kristen is just on edge all the time. She's constantly feeling watched. That thing out of the TV, that came out of the TV, absolutely terrified her. So she tried to stay out of the living room for a little bit. But one night she decides that she's going to go back into the living room and she's going to watch TV. But she gets this unwavering feeling that something is staring at her. She's trying to ignore it. She's like, okay, I'm just panicking right now. I need to calm myself down. I'm anxious because of everything that's been happening. When suddenly she hears this, something is rattling. So she looks to her right and a picture is rattling on the wall. But the picture itself is the only thing rattling. And then the picture just goes to a like 90-degree angle and flies off the wall. This was the turning point for her where she was like, okay, I can't be in this house. I'm not going to be in this house alone. So for a year, an entire year, she refused to be in that house alone. Well, in that year, a few things happened, and they noticed that every single time something would happen, that little angel figure that they had, Esmeralda, she would tip over every time something scary would happen. So her mom actually ends up breaking it over something and then throwing it away across town, and things ended up stopping in that house. Fast forward about 10 years later, and she gets married and she moves into an apartment with her husband. Now, her husband really likes horror movies and she can't watch them. She can't watch any of the movies that he likes. He likes The Conjuring, he likes slasher films, everything. She has experienced too much paranormal activity to be watching these types of movies, but her husband loves them but does not believe in the paranormal. So her husband does something that he probably should not have done. He starts walking through the house and he starts inviting Lilith into the house, asking Lilith to come show herself and prove to him that the paranormal is real. After he does this, one night Christian is sitting in their bedroom and she starts hearing this sound in her closet. It's and it's over and over again. Something is scratching inside of her closet. Well, she ignores this because she doesn't want to feel any fear. But a couple things happen that end up making them move out of that apartment. Well, they had a home pad in their kitchen. One day they wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to feed their baby, and her husband walks into the kitchen when he notices that something is playing on the home pad. It's Tiptoe Through the Tulips, but it's playing only that verse over and over and over again. At a certain point, they were able to communicate to whatever this was through the home pad. And this is what made them leave, because she would ask it questions like, are you a boy or a girl? And it would play, I'm Just a Girl by No Doubt. She asked it, what do you think about me? And it played a song that had the verse, I hate you, in it. Then she asked the final question, what type of entity are you? And it played a song by the band Ghost that lists all the different types of names of Satan. At this point, they both agreed that they need to move out of this house. But before they could do that, her son wakes up in the middle of the night one night and comes to her and he's crying. And he's telling her that there's a little boy that lives in his closet that keeps coming out of the closet. And when he's not in the closet, he crawls underneath their bed. So she's finally like, yep, we're done. We're leaving. The day that they move out, she's moving everything out of the house and she goes into the closet to move the stuff out of her closet, and she opens the door and she sees these long claw marks on the door, and there's like deep claw marks all over the inside of her closet door from when she heard that scratching sound. She said that after she has moved out of this house, she still occasionally sees like shadows out of the corner of her eyes, but they have learned how to protect themselves, and so everything is pretty calm right now, but that this experience, that 13 years of hell that she went through, will forever live with her. So what did you guys think about that story? That was pretty crazy, right? That would freak me out, especially the little boy crawling underneath the bed. You guys know how I feel about shit like that. I cannot do it. Also, the Tiptoe Through the Tulips thing, that really got me. I hate that song. That song freaks me out so much. It just makes me think of Insidious, and it freaks me out. I feel like it's just like a bad song. I don't know why I feel that way. Her name was called multiple times, and it was called in her mother's voice at one point. It sounds demonic to me. I know that demons can mimic people's voices, and especially the thing that came out of the TV and the scratching in the closet. I don't think that little boy was a little boy. Like, you know, I normally don't think that. I personally think this was demonic, but what do you guys think? Drop all your opinions, thoughts, and suggestions in the comments, please. But please be respectful as always. And now we're gonna do my favorite part, which is the shout outs. Amanda Amanda_Ramon. Girl, you are the best. You are sharing my content with other people, and that is so supportive. Thank you so much for doing that. That means so much to me. You have no idea. Thank you for supporting my page and sharing it with others. Thank you for commenting and pushing my videos out. Thank you for liking my videos enough to watch them. I am so lucky to have people like you. I really, truly am. So I appreciate you more than you possibly will ever know, and I love you, girl. Thank you. Wallflower116. Thank you so much for the comment that you left. That was such a kind comment, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for supporting me and watching my videos and commenting and pushing out my videos. And thank you again for your kind words, because that really did make my day. I appreciate you, and I'm so lucky to have you. Thank you. I just love you. I just love you. And with that being said, my name is Kajsa, and I tell true scary stories on here every single night that you guys submit to me. So if you're into that, hit that follow button, and I just need you to do 3 things for me. And one of those, keep sending me your scary stories. Have a safe night. And what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. Love you guys so much. See you in the next one. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
This girl swears that something in the Appalachian Mountains attacked her brother one night and wouldn't let go and completely changed his personality. This story is so terrifying. If you were watching this at night, I would recommend just saving it, watching it again in the morning, because it is really, really scary. To protect the identity of her family and of her brother specifically, she wanted to remain anonymous, so we are going to call her Rachel. I have to be really careful giving location of this story, again, to protect identity, but it did happen in West Virginia. Rachel said she lived in a very rural area of West Virginia with her mom, her dad, and her brother. She came from a loving family. Her and her brother were straight A students, always did really well in school, but her brother, and we'll call him Mason, in high school started to kind of get tied up with the wrong crowd. And this group of friends, she said, wasn't like the popular kids in school. It wasn't like they were out partying at house parties and stuff. It was a very smaller group of kids, and they were kind of loners, and what they enjoyed doing was going out into the woods, kind of finding some old abandoned homes, having a few beers. She said she didn't really know what they were doing out there in the woods, but that they would go out, and usually he came home smelling like campfire, like smoky. The more he hung out with this group of kids, the more he became isolated, and his parents kind of started to get a little concerned. She said the night that changed everything, though, is whenever he told his parents he was going out to hang out with his friends in the woods. He didn't come home until super, super late. She said she was laying on the couch watching a movie when he came in the door, and she said that his clothes were ripped. He said he had some scratches on his face, but his whole demeanor was just like this very flat affect. Said she immediately got off the couch and was like, Mason, what is going on? Like, why are you all scratched up? And he just looked at her and he was like, nothing happened to me. She said, no, Mason, clearly something has happened to you. I'm going to go wake up mom and dad, because what is going on? She said he has never, ever been violent towards her, but he grabbed her by the arms and sat her down on the couch and was like, do not wake them up. Next morning, he wouldn't come out of his room. He refused to go to school. His parents were very concerned, and again asking him, Mason, what happened to you last night? Like, why are you all bruised up? Why do you have all these scratches? Why are your clothes torn? They called the families of the boys that were his friends, and all of the families were like, no, our sons didn't go out last night. They were all home. So Mason was never even with anyone. He went out into these woods alone, apparently. Rachel said as time went on, his behavior just became worse and worse. He became more isolated. He became more violent. He started mumbling to himself, she said. It was at this point that her parents thought that he may have some kind of a psychiatric disorder. She said he was seen by a psychiatrist and placed on meds, but the medication never helped. It wasn't until months later that Rachel said Mason finally admitted to her the reason he went out into the woods that night was because it was a dare from his friends. Apparently they had dared him to sit out in this abandoned home in the woods all night. He told her that as he was sitting alone there in the dark, something evil attacked him. He would not elaborate any further on it. She told her parents, who then told the psychiatrist, and they just kept increasing his medication, thinking again this is a mental disorder. Rachel said at this point, years have passed since this has happened. He has still never been the same, and he is currently in jail for violent crimes. Whatever happened that night has absolutely ruined their family. She just doesn't know how to explain it. She says every time she shares this story, people just think she's crazy or that her family's crazy. What do you think this is? What do you think could have caused this? I mean, he was a normal kid. Now his whole personality, his whole life has fallen apart because of this one night. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more stories like this, just follow along.
I lived in a haunted apartment across the street from a cemetery for like 3 or 4 years of my life. This was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I've never told you guys the story before, but it was some of the most scary, some of the most terrifying experiences that I've ever experienced in my entire life happened in this apartment. And I actually have photographic evidence that I'm going to show you guys at the end of this video, and the picture that I'm going to show you is one of the most telling paranormal pictures I've ever seen in my life. It actually took me hours of scouring my phone just now to find this picture. So basically, when you guys know that I'm in recovery, and when I very first moved to Long Island, I lived in a sober house. I lived in the sober house for about 8 or 9 months, and then I got my own apartment. When I got my own apartment, nothing was wrong with the apartment. Okay, so I'm a very spiritual person, and I can feel when things are in apartments and when there's like negative energies or good energies. I didn't feel anything in that apartment until something happened to my best friend. So when I first moved into the apartment, there was an extra bedroom in the apartment, and so in order to help me pay rent, I rented out that extra room. Well, a girl moved in with me, and she was from the sober house, and she ended up coming in and relapsing, and she moved out. Well, another girl from the sober house who had been sober for like 2 or 3 years, and I was really good friends with, and finds this out, and she contacts me and is like, hey, can I come rent out the room from you? Since she had been sober for so long and I had known her so well, I was like, yeah, you can come live with me. So she comes and lives with me, and to make a long story short, she also ends up relapsing. I guess I didn't learn my lesson the first time, but she ends up relapsing on some really bad schmugs. Like, we're talking like bad. So she was one of my best friends, so I tried to give her like 2 or 3 chances, which I probably shouldn't have done, but I had to kick her out, unfortunately. A week after I kicked her out, I get a phone call from her cousin telling me that she had OD'd and she had passed away. This really sucked for me because the last things that I said to her were something along the lines of, I hate you, I never want to see you again, like, you're disgusting. She said the same, like, she hated me. It was really bad. I had so much guilt over this, and I'm not sure if it was my grief or if it was because she was using in my apartment that brought all of this negative energy in. But after she passed away, everything went to shit. Like, my apartment it felt so different. The first incident that I can remember happening is I was in my room watching TV, and I hear a big boom in the kitchen. And I go in the kitchen, and on the kitchen floor are all of my pots and pans, because I used to like to bake a lot, and they were scattered in the middle of the kitchen floor, and they were on a shelf that was not tilted. There was no way that they could have flown off the shelf, and they were like in the middle of the floor, and the shelf was against the wall, so they would have had to literally fly off of that shelf. So I'm standing in the kitchen at the time like, what the hell? And I just had this eerie feeling, like this bad feeling, as I'm standing in the kitchen staring at these pots and pans, when I hear this. Now, in my room, I had a mirror, and on the mirror, I had a picture of Jesus on the mirror. And after I hear this noise, I'm like, what the hell is that? And I walk into my room, and right where the Jesus picture was on my mirror was cracked, like completely shattered. I actually have a picture of that somewhere too. I'm going to try to find it for you guys. It was only where the Jesus picture was that it was cracked. Well, I knew in my heart that something bad was in that apartment at this point, but I just didn't want to admit it. So I was trying to explain everything away. Well, I end up going to sleep that night, and I have one of the most horrifying sleep paralysis incidents that I have ever had in my life, besides the one that I just recently had where I couldn't breathe. I fall asleep and I wake up and I can't move. And I have normally never been able to see anything in my sleep paralysis incidents, and in this one I could. I woke up, I scanned the room, there's nothing in the room, and suddenly I see something in the corner of the door just like slowly walk in the doorway, very slowly. It stops in front of my doorway, and I'm looking at it, and I realize that it is my unalived friend standing in my doorway. Her mouth is hanging open, like jaw, like shouldn't have been able to, like her jaw almost looked disconnected, and she was screaming, and I couldn't hear her scream, but I could just tell that she was screaming. At this point, I am freaking out because I cannot believe what I am seeing, because she looks exactly like her. Like, it's not like she looked distorted in any way. She looked exactly like her, just like her jaw was disconnected, and it was almost like she was like trying to tell me something. And I'm not sure if this was her or if this was something like worse, but as I'm trying to fight out of this, I keep like trying to close my eyes, and every time I open my eyes, she's a little closer to me, and a little closer to me, and a little closer to me, until finally she was literally right in my face. And I remember looking at her eyes and like looking into her eyes and being like, holy, that is my friend. Like, that's her. I'm looking at her, and she's not here, and I'm looking at her. And then her jaw just goes and then I jolt awake. At this point, I'm absolutely terrified. I'm gasping for air, and I can't go to sleep. I cannot believe that just happened. Like, I just saw her. I cannot believe that just happened. What was that? Was that her? Was she trying to communicate with me? Was that something else? Like, this is so bad, and the air just felt so thick and heavy and dark. Like, I can't even explain to you how dark it felt. I was so terrified. Well, a couple of nights later, I'm laying in bed, and at this point, I couldn't sleep without the TV on, so the TV was on, and I'm laying in bed, and I decide that I'm going to try to go to sleep. So I go to lay down, and I go to close my eyes, and as soon as I lay down, I feel something sit on the end of my bed, like full blown, my feet, like right next to my feet where the mattress indented all the way down. And I'm telling myself, don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look, Kajsa, don't look, don't do it. And I don't know why I did this, but I lifted up the covers and I looked, and the mattress was completely indented. And as soon as I see the mattress indented, I watch the other part of it indent, like as if someone were taking their knees and crawling on my bed towards me. And just as I am about to literally get out of bed and freak out, underneath my bed just goes boom. So I jump out of bed at this point, and I have a new roommate, like not from the sober house. She's just a girl from somewhere else. I didn't know. I just got her from one of those roommate sites that you like post rooms on. Really nice girl, had just moved in. I go into her room at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I make her look underneath my bed with me to check to see if there's an actual person or somebody had broken into the house, because that's how real that was. Like I thought somebody was underneath my bed, but I knew that nobody could be underneath my bed because there was drawers underneath my bed. But I made her check anyway. She probably thought I was insane. There's nobody there, right? So I can't sleep again for the rest of that night. Absolutely terrified. Now, stuff like that kept happening to me, but I'm going to get to the part about the picture because this is getting too long. So after a couple nights of me going through hell, there was a couple nights where nothing happened. There was like 2 or 3 nights where nothing happened. After the 2 or 3 nights that nothing happened, one day I'm going through my phone and the pictures in my phone, and I notice that there's a picture in my phone. It's like this dark picture. And in the picture, I go to zoom in because I realize that the picture is of me. You just can't see me. I can tell that it's me because it's where I sleep in my bed, and the window that I sleep in front of, that's behind me, that like faces the graveyard, is in the picture, but there's a face in the window. But I did not take this picture. Now, this is the picture, and I circled the face, and then if you guys can see the face, and here's another picture of it zoomed in. That, guys, do you guys see what I'm seeing, or am I losing my mind? So this story is getting really long, and there's so much more to the story. If you guys want to hear more about this house, just drop in the comments. I can tell you guys more about this house. But what do you guys think was going on here? Do you think that that was my friend, or do you think that that was something different? I personally think it was something different. I don't think that it was her. I don't think that she would do that, and I just don't believe that it was her. And do you guys think that it was her unaliving, or what happened to her that caused the negative entities in my home, or do you think it was my grief? Like, what are your thoughts on this? I would love to know what you think about this. With that being said, I'm now going to go on my favorite part, which is the shout outs. Hippie Heart 74 is my first shout out. You left such a nice comment. That made me smile so big. Thank you so much for saying what you said. That meant the whole entire world to me. When I read that comment, I was like, I'm so lucky. I am so lucky to have these people in my community. I appreciate you. I hope you know how much I appreciate you. I appreciate that you comment, that you're in my community, that you like my stories, that you watch my stories. I'm so lucky to have you, and I would not have this channel without you. So thank you so much. I love you, girl. Luxor113, I hope I pronounced that correctly. You said that I was your favorite spooky storyteller. That means so much to me. You have no idea. To even be one person's favorite is like, that is everything to me, and I feel so lucky to have you. You have no idea. So thank you so much for your comment, because it made my whole entire night, and I appreciate you being a part of my community. I appreciate you telling me that. I appreciate you commenting and pushing my videos out, liking my stories. I just love you. Thank you so much. I'm about to show you the cutest pair of overalls I have ever owned or seen in my entire life. You guys do not have to watch this part. That is why I put it at the end. So I am normally not an overall girly, but come on, these are so freaking cute. I'm wearing like boots with them right now. It's like kind of like a thinner material. It's like cloth material, not jean material. They have pockets right here that go super deep, adjustable straps. Right here they have 2 little pockets up top. You can wear a long sleeve shirt with it, a tank top, a short sleeve shirt. I don't know what it is about these overalls that I am so obsessed with, but they have it in army green. They were sold out when I tried to get them. So I'm going to drop the orange shopping cart right there for you ladies. This one's a good one. And with that being said, my name is Kajsa, and I tell true scary stories on here every single night that you guys submit to me. So if you're into that, hit that follow button, and I just need you to do 3 things for me. And what are those? Keep sending me your scary stories. Have a safe night. And what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. Love you guys so much. See you in the next one. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
Hey cousins, it's your cousin with another spooky story. Come on. So I have this friend when we were 19 or 20, you know, that's when we first became acquainted. She comes from a very well-off family, so she has money. Her family has money. And she was like, hey, how about we go to my family's lake house? I was like, oh, okay. Now, me and her, we used to, you know, we're young, we're in college, we don't have any responsibilities but ourselves. So, of course, we used to be like, okay, we would take a road trip in a minute and we would take a flight in a minute. Okay, it was never a problem. So, fast forward, we got to the lake house. And once we got there, we're having a ball, we're having fun. And we're sitting on the couch. And while we're sitting on the couch, she decided to take the time and tell me, I used to be so freaked out to come here. And my first reaction is, why? What's up? Why was you scared to come here? Now, mind you, me and her actually met at a stroll off at Wayne State. So we're friends, but we're not like childhood friends to where I felt comfortable enough to tell her that of my, you know, seeing abilities. So I never told her. So then fast forward to, we had been talking for hours and it's probably almost 2 a.m. So it's time for us to go to sleep. So it's time for me to go to my room. Our rooms are across from each other. And so as soon as I walk in my room, I see a spirit floating, like floating over near the window. Okay. And once I opened the door and saw the spirit, it started floating like across my bed. And I instantly was just like blinking a lot, just like this, because please tell me my contacts just need to be adjusted. So then fast forward, I knocked on my friend's door and I was like, hey, how about I stay in your room tonight? So as you can imagine, you know, you in the same room as your friends. So of course y'all talking and stuff. And so while we're up talking, she started telling me like, yeah, my family's they bought this lake house when we were younger. And then she told me about the person that hung themselves on the property. So my first thought is that while they were floating? So we get tired of talking to each other and I go to sleep, but I felt her moving a lot. So I look over and she's sitting right, like straight up in bed. And I'm like, what? So I'm looking at her trying to figure out what she's looking at. And she's looking over at the window and she pointed. And there's this woman with the creepiest smile, like creepy, the creepiest smile on her face, knocking on the window. Can you help me? Can you help me? I looked at her and I said, you better. So after that creepy lady knocked on the window asking to be let in, me and my friend got into this real big argument. Like we really going back and forth. She is real mad at me. She like, but what if that person needs help? And da 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 da. And I said, I guarantee you that person did not need help. She was just like, I'm about to go check for myself. Y'all, she went up front. And when she went up front, she went and opened up the front door. I ran so fast and closed that front door because why would you do that? It's late as hell. And you was going to let just anybody up in here with us and I'm here too? Nah. So after we locked everything up out there, we ended up going to my room because both of us was real weirded out. So we decided we was going to stay together in my room. So we get to my room. And we're sitting straight up. We're watching TV. And I locked the room door, of course. Because we're too scared to go to sleep. So we just up. And so then I hear knocking on my room door. Please, I need help. Like something like that. And I was like, now, mind you, I already know what's up. My friend has never seen a ghost. Never experienced anything. Well, she has, but she just don't know it because when she said she just never felt right coming there, that was a sign right there. So then she's sitting up there, you know, she just got this look on her face. And I thought, okay, she finally get it. She finally get that this, you know, these are spirits. She goes there and look me dead in my face. She came in our house. I looked at her and I was like, girl. So then I had to explain to her what was going on. She freaked out even more. And while I was explaining to her, something walked in the room. Door was locked, by the way. Walked in the room. Door is wide open. and came and sat right in front of the TV on the dresser. Now, the TV is hung up on the wall, but, you know, there's a dresser right there. They sit right there on the dresser. Right on the dresser. Y'all, she ain't been the same since. She ain't been the same since. Now, you can't go nowhere with homegirl without her knowing the details of, like, who stayed in this house before us. She want to know the history, everything. She don't trust nobody now. She want to pray before everything now. She don't care if we just going for a walk. She want to pray. She don't play that. Because she just really couldn't believe her ears and her eyes when she saw that. She was, oh my God, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall.
I've heard so many spooky stories that came out of the Appalachian Mountains, and I love them all. I've got one for you from someone who said that back in 2023, it was the scariest night of their lives. Creepy story time. This story is from the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. So this guy's property is along the edge of the woods, and late one night, he steps outside to go and close up his workshop. He said he brought his golden retriever, Ozzy, with him. Now, Ozzy is one of these dogs that is super chill, never really growls or barks, loves everybody. Not very easily spooked. But that night, the second they stepped off the porch, Ozzy's hair stood on end and he started growling real deep in his throat. Cautiously now, he made his way over to his workshop and he went to pull the door closed, and all of a sudden, everything went wrong. First, he said everything around went completely silent, like too quiet, so quiet he could hear his own heartbeat. And then, just like that, the silence broke. He described it as sounding like hundreds of things were running through the trees, snapping branches, crunching leaves, footsteps pounding on the ground, bushes thrashing. The sound didn't come from just one place. He said it came from all around him, circling the property. It was such a large area for all this chaos to be happening at once. It was mind-boggling. He said he whipped his flashlight out and he scanned the edge of the property and he could see nothing, but he kept hearing all of these sounds get closer and closer and louder and louder. Ozzy was even getting more freaked out and pressing his body up against him and growling even louder still, not moving an inch. He said the atmosphere just felt super heavy and wrong, almost like a storm was coming in, but it wasn't windy at all. There were no clouds in the sky. Just a sick, panicked feeling in his gut that something was very wrong. So he and Ozzy sprinted to the house and slammed the door behind them and locked it. Even from inside, he could still hear the snapping and crashing outside in the woods. And then after a few minutes, total silence. All at once, it just ended. Everything went back to normal like nothing ever happened. He says he has no idea what could have been out there that night, but all he knows is that his dog has never acted like that prior or since, and he has never experienced anything like that before. And whatever was in those trees, he said could not have been just animals. It felt like something evil was lurking. I feel like every Appalachia story is so different from the next. It fascinates me, and I want to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to follow for more creepy story time.
This is the scariest story that I've ever read. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about pretty scary stuff, and I very rarely post videos from my bed, but I have been prolonging making a video about the story that I just read for probably like an hour and a half. And it's not only because it is so scary, there were some really strange things happening in my home when I was reading it. And I don't mean like this was a feeling that I was having in my stomach or anything. Like I was genuinely hearing physical things happening around me. And if you're not new here, then you know that this has happened before with one other story, and it was about the same topic. But I just read a story about possession. So let's get into it. And before I start, I do just want to say I do keep moving my eyes around the room that I'm in because I keep hearing things when I stop recording or when I start recording, and it's kind of freaking me out. But the story comes from someone who would like to remain anonymous, and for obvious reasons I'm going to respect that. And the person who sent me this email says that they dabble in a bit of witchcraft. And what I think is interesting is at the beginning of this email they say that they dabble in witchcraft and proceed to say, I have always found the spiritual realm very interesting, but now I am so scared of it. It proceeds to say that these instances happen over the course of months. Now, the person who sent me this email says that they went to go see her long-distance best friend, and the moment she walked in the door, she could feel different energies around her friend. She doesn't really specify what kind of energy is around her friend. She just says that it was different than the other energies. So they try the Estes method in her friend's house. And if you're not familiar with the Estes method, I would recommend watching a video on it because the way I'm about to explain it is not going to make any sense. But during a paranormal investigation, one person will sit blindfolded with headphones on, and in the headphones, the sound is essentially going through frequencies of a radio station, much like a spirit box. The person who does not have the blindfold or the headphones on is asking the other one questions, and you are supposed to get answers back. Great example is Sam and Colby. They use this method a lot. So the person who submits the email is using the Estes method with her best friend, and I guess their other friend is there as well, so there are 3 people total. And while they were performing the Estes method, the person who sent me this email specifically says that she felt like she was being touched while she was asking these questions. And after a while, they decided to turn the lights off. And the moment the lights go off, she sees a face like here. This entity then approaches her best friend who is blindfolded. And that is when things go south. They immediately turn the lights on. They're screaming her name. They took the headphones off. They took the blindfold off. And she is just not waking up. After 5-10 minutes, she abruptly opens her eyes and her pupils are extremely dilated. She is very pale. Obviously, she's been pretty much knocked out for 10 minutes and she is not responding. I wish you guys could see the chills I have on my arms because she says that her friend just starts laughing. They're asking her questions and this thing is just toying with them. And after almost an hour, her friend finally comes to and is like, what the hell happened to me? And I wish it just stopped there. I am not going to get into the other instances unless people request another video out of this because it is genuinely freaking me out. I am hearing things and I know for a fact that was on video. I'm going to close out with this. In the email, the person who sent me this describes after these events happening that this thing would mimic them, try to lure them out to be alone and away from each other so it could isolate them. And I don't like that. So that's gonna do it for me for now. Stay tuned for my ghost stories.
I have another spooky story for you guys. This one was submitted by someone who met a woman at a party under some very strange circumstances. So let's just go ahead and jump right into the story. I met a girl at a party once, and I still don't understand what really happened that night. I was at a friend's house party. It was nothing crazy. There was just some music, drinks, and then a handful of people hanging out around the living room. I really wasn't planning on staying long until I noticed this woman. She was standing near the kitchen wearing a bright red dress that made her stand out from everyone else. Most people were in jeans or casual clothes, but she looked like she was dressed up for a fancy dinner or something elegant. She kept looking around as if she was lost or confused, so I decided to walk over to her and strike up a conversation. I walked up to her, said hi, and gave her some lame pickup line that I'm too embarrassed to repeat. But she ended up smiling at me and we started talking. She was charming and smart, and the conversation flowed so easily that it felt like I'd known her for years. We spent the entire night together, just the 2 of us, tucked away in a corner while the party went on around us. At the end of the night, I asked her for her number. She leaned close, whispered in my ear, and told me she couldn't wait to see me again. She never gave me her number, so I wasn't sure exactly how that would be possible, but I also didn't want to push it if she wasn't comfortable giving out her number. So the next morning, I had plans to meet up with my friend who threw the party. I asked him about her, but my friend was confused about what woman I was talking about. I kept saying to him, the woman in the red dress who I was talking to all night. He took a long pause before he replied and said, no one was wearing a red dress last night, and you were sitting by yourself. I almost came over to get you, but it looked like you were on the phone because you were just talking to yourself. Confused, I decided to drop it. I assumed that maybe he really just didn't notice her. About a week later, I went to another party that my friend was having at the same house. From across the room, I saw her again. She was wearing the same red dress. So I ran over to my friend and dragged him over to the spot where I saw the woman and pointed directly at her. My friend kept insisting that he couldn't see her, so I started describing what she looked like. Suddenly, my friend pulled away from me and told me to stop playing around. I guess he could see the confusion on my face because his tone changed, and he started explaining that the woman I described, sounded like his cousin, who had passed away in that home about 20 years prior. She had a lot of medical issues and ended up having a stroke one evening after she got back from a party. When she passed, she was wearing a red dress. I have no explanation for that encounter. Everyone I've told this to says I saw a ghost, but I've never had a single strange experience before that night, and I just can't explain why I was the only one who could see her. I mean, it sounds to me like he saw a ghost, but I'm really curious what you guys think about this story. Leave your thoughts down in the comments, and don't forget to like and follow for more spooky stories.
The haunted house I grew up in is something straight out of a horror movie. If you're new here, my name is Casey, and this is the series where I talk about the haunted historical home I grew up in. The story I'm about to tell you literally takes place this week. I literally found out about this today. So my mom's birthday is tomorrow, so we celebrated it today at my parents' haunted house. If you've been watching the series, then you know that my dad does not like to talk about the haunting. To the point where when I was younger, he talked about the importance of not acknowledging it because it would make the energy worse. So like sometimes crazy shit would happen and then he'd just blow it off and you almost felt gaslit because it's like, oh my God, you know it's bad when he on his own is bringing it up. Apparently the other night my dad was asleep on the couch in the living room and he woke up because he started hearing some noises going on in the dining room. But not only was he hearing noises, he started to get this overwhelming, heavy sense that somebody was in the room watching him. Now, behind the couch is a door that leads to a stairwell that twists upstairs. He said he suddenly felt a cold rush and breeze from behind him, and it felt as if someone was standing right behind him. It frightened him enough, he told my mother, listen, my dad is a military vet. He's a hard ass. He doesn't get scared easy. He doesn't talk about getting scared very much. There's been very few occasions that my father will even address the situation, which is the entities in the house. A lot of people keep saying, well, why do they still live there? Why do they still live there? Number one, things don't happen every single day. Number two, not all of the energies are bad. But I will say, moments like this, when you get that heavy feeling, those are the times that are scary as hell because there's an unsettling presence. I believe with the history of the property that I've kind of went over in this series, that there are more than one spirit. And I do believe some of them are disturbed, where I think others are just kind of lost and they're gentle and they're harmless. You also have to take into consideration that my parents have put their blood, sweat, and tears into remodeling this house. They love the house itself. They love where it's at. And there's no guarantee you're not going to move somewhere else haunted. I think I'm going to try to see if I can convince my dad or maybe even my mom to talk about some of the things that have happened and if they will allow me to record them. However, I almost feel a little bit bad because recently since I've started this series, it just gets me into this mood where I like spiral wanting to know everything about the house, the history. And I've went over there several times and I've been going in the basement and recording things. And I'm just hoping I'm not pissing something off because like I don't have to live there anymore. Maybe now that I'm older and that they're kind of more open to things, I wonder if they'd let me take like ghost hunting equipment or like contact somebody and see what we could find out. Anyways, you know, there's like a million more stories. So if you want to hear more stories on the haunted house that I grew up in, make sure to go ahead and give me a follow, like, comment, share. As always, thank you for watching. Love you, bye.
Apparently not even pizza drivers are safe. And if you wanted to see their little bows, like bow hoops. So when this guy was a lot younger and he was still in school, he was working at a pizza place being the delivery driver. He explains how this pizza delivery job was the only reason he was able to get school supplies and the books needed for classes. So one night they get an order for pizza and he says that he was the only delivery driver there, so he accepted, but he accepted without seeing where this pizza was going to be delivered to because it was this town over, but not in the city, out in the middle of nowhere. So the pizza's ready, he gets on his motorcycle and he starts driving to that town and he's like, well, this town is really in the middle of nowhere because he's literally leaving the city lights behind and basically by himself on a road. He was taking the directions that was given to him and at some point he had to turn into like this dirt road, which to him wasn't a big deal, but he really just wanted to make the delivery and go back into town because he didn't want to be out there by himself. So when he turns into that dirt road, he notices that there's just a lot of trees, like kind of like a foresty place, and he was alone. It was really dark. He couldn't even see any lights to any houses by that point. So as he's going on this road, he says that on the sides it looked like a lot of forest, and as he's going through this road with the lights of his motorcycle, he can kind of see a lady in between like the forest, not necessarily on the road, but like on the side of the road walking. He explains how this lady looks really old, like she shouldn't be walking out here by herself. And that as he's driving and getting closer to where she is, he notices that the lady's giving him the sign like stop, stop, you know, like almost like if she needed help. When he sees this, he said that he did start slowing down because he got a little bit scared for that lady, but the more and more he would get close to her, the more he would notice that there was something really wrong with this lady. She was wearing a white nightgown, but it was full of like red marks, almost like blood, that even her hair looked a mess, like it was very white and gray. And when he finally got close enough to see this lady's face, he realized that this lady was like smiling, like almost laughing at him, still giving him like signals to come towards her, but like smiling and laughing, just trying to get him to get towards her. Bitch, I would have died on the spot, because that's in my head, I'm picturing it and I'm already scared. When he sees this, where she's like giggling and smiling, still trying to get him to get to her, he literally hit the gas. He was like, I'm not stopping, so he accelerated and he went as fast as he could. He looks in the rear view mirror, and why the fuck does he see her following him, running after him at a speed that an old lady should not be running at? He says that he can hear her laughing as she's running, and he could swear at some points he could see her running with both her like arms and legs. Fuck that. He said that what he saw that night just seems like something that you would see in a scary movie, because how the fuck is this old lady running that fast behind me on a motorcycle, and he's literally just looking at it through his rearview mirror. He's obviously still watching her behind him because he's terrified, going as fast as he can. And he said that when she was laughing, it just sounded like she was making fun of him. And the last little, you know, view that he had was her kind of going up in the air. It looked like she was jumping, and then when he looked back again, it was like she disappeared into the sky, like up. Not like, oh, she ran to the side. No, like she went up into the sky. Thankfully, he finally made it to like the street where he was gonna deliver the pizza to, and he finally started seeing houses with lights and everything, and he didn't see her anymore, so he went and tried to deliver that pizza. He knocks on the door and gives the lady the pizza, but he says that the lady who answered the door looked really scared, and she's like, are you okay? Like, you don't look good. And he said that he did not lie to this lady, that he told this lady everything that happened on the dirt road before getting to that lady's street. But the reason he told her what he was telling her was because he was gonna ask the lady if there's another way out of here, because obviously he doesn't want to go back to that road. Like, fuck that, I wouldn't want to go through there either. This lady like kept staring at him like, oh my god. Like, so she starts telling him that a lot of people from there have also claimed to have seen this older lady in that dirt road, and that she had appeared to a lot of people who crossed through there. The urban legend, or like the story, was that people believe that she used to be a witch, that people in that town actually burned her a very long time ago, because apparently this witch had taken a lot of kids and a lot of people had been disappearing, so the whole town came together and burned her inside of her house. Hocus pocus, who bitch, apparently that shit was real. However, obviously they didn't expect for her to return to that town and haunt them, but yeah, she's very much there. This lady ends up calling her husband comes over and they ask, hey, is there another route for him to take, because obviously he doesn't want to go back there. The husband says that there is another route, but it was gonna take him a lot longer to get back into town, and he's like, I don't care, I just want to make it back safe. Thankfully, he made it back to the pizza shop without seeing this lady again, and when he got there, he did tell his co-workers what had just happened. The only reason that the co-workers believed him was because of how scared he looked, so they made it a point to not deliver pizza to that town ever again. He even said that he kept working there, but nobody accepted any orders outside of that town anymore. It didn't even matter if it was that town that he was at. If it was in the outskirts of where they were not accepting orders anymore. Fuck that. No wonder there's no delivery where my mom lives, because that shit is way out in the middle of nowhere. Fuck that too. I don't even care. I hate leaving my mom's house at night because the drive that I have to take by myself, no thank you. But anyway, what do you guys think? Like, that poor pizza driver, and also the people who ordered the pizza, like, you guys fucking knew too. You guys fucking knew, and well, I guess pizza is life. Yeah, pizza is life. Fuck.
Do you guys want to hear a scary story? It's nighttime, it's spooky, let's get into it. The story is coming from the kids I used to babysit for that lived in an extremely haunted house. Quick context, if you're new here, we're going to call the oldest child Luna and the youngest child Aura. This is actually one of my first experiences, and I had probably about 50 of them working for this family over the span of almost 10 years, but this is one of the first encounters that I have. The little girl was haunted by, well, the whole house, but best friends with an entity named Pete. Pete was demonic, aggressive, evil, angry, vengeful, and she saw Pete as an imaginary friend for a very long time because that's what some kids do. Spirits and entities are able to find their way into the home through children. Remember, they feed off of weak and young, innocent people for the most part. People that are vulnerable. So this was probably the third or fourth time I had seen with my own eyes Pete and had encounters with him. So it took me a long time to get stamina built up to be able to go into this house, and I was still really scared to babysit at this time, but I was young, I needed money, and I loved the kid. Now, this family had a really, extensive CD and VHS, record, so they had so many movies, both kids and both, adult movies, in this giant armoire of old VHSs and old CDs. So, and by CDs, sorry, I mean discs, movie discs. So the girls watched a lot of stuff from this collection because they still had a working VHS player and they still had a working DVD player, which I thought was really cool because I'm a 90s kid. So I always loved watching those movies over on demand stuff. So Luna, I was like, which movie do you want to watch? And she comes running out, right? A VHS of The Black Cauldron. Do you guys remember that movie? Because I do. I remember it's such a fever dream movie for me. I didn't think anyone, let alone this kid, this little girl, would have known what that movie is. Because I'm pretty sure Disney tried to ban it too, or something like that. I don't remember, but she pulls out The Black Cauldron, and I was like, I feel like we should not watch this one because of the shit going on in your house. I don't want you to have any bad dreams. So I told her, oh no, this one's a little scary. Let's look at something else. And she said, no, I watch this one with Pete all the time. Comforting, right? And she starts throwing a full freaking meltdown, can't breathe, shaking, on the floor, holding the VHS, kicking her feet, because I was telling her no. So I texted the mom, and I was like, hey, I know this might sound silly, but I just want to double check with you that it's okay for Luna to watch The Black Cauldron. I just remember, I know it's a Disney movie, but I remember it being really scary when I was a kid. Just want to make sure it's okay if she watches it. And she said, oh, that's interesting. I haven't seen that one with her. But I'll get into this. Somehow Luna knew the movie. She knew the context. She knew, I forget his name. It's the Skeleton King or something, whatever the Horned King. She knew his name. She knew the plot line, so she had clearly seen this movie. And anyways, her mom was like, no, I haven't seen that one with her. And the dad also works a lot, so he was never really home. So I thought, okay, maybe it's the dad, whatever. And she's like, no, I haven't seen that, but if she really wants to watch it, go ahead. And so in my head, I'm like, I just had a bad feeling about watching this movie with her. Felt like it just shouldn't be in her head because of all the hauntings happening. But I gave in because I just was already having a really rough night there with them. Baby, toddler too, on top of the hauntings. These are two young girls, so it's a lot on my plate. And I was young at the time. I started babysitting them when I was 12 or 13. So anyways, I was like, okay. We put the movie on, and Luna starts telling me every single, plot line of this movie. And she doesn't even know how to work the actual VHS player. I had to put it in the right way, start it. It was a very weird thing, because her mom was like, oh, I didn't even know we had that. I've never watched it with her. And I knew the dad wasn't home that much to watch movies. But she said, Luna, she watched it with Pete, her imaginary friend. So we start watching the movie, and Horned King comes on, the cauldron's all bubbly. And the skeletons, it's that scene when the skeletons start waving out of the cauldrons. And I remember she was like, that reminds me so much of Pete. I think that's why Pete loves this movie. He loves this movie because he's Horned King. He's Horned King. It ruined The Black Cauldron for me. Which again, I remember the movie vaguely, but I used to like it. I literally cannot watch it anymore because of that sentence was just very chilling to me. There's that scene, like I said, where it's the corpses are flying out of the cauldron. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember. This was well over 10 years ago, and I haven't seen it since. But it was one of those scenes where I think they were floating out of the potion, whatever. And Luna starts kicking her feet, and she's smiling, and she said, oh my gosh, and she's tapping something next to her. There's nothing next to her. I'm to the right of her. She's tapping her left side, and she's giggly. And she's looking over and laughing and smiling at nothing. And all of a sudden the room just feels heavy, extra heavy. The energy is thick. It's not great. Doesn't feel good. I instantly get chills, and I'm like, we need to turn this movie off. When I say we need to turn this movie off, the the VHS player starts glitching fucking crazy. And we had the light on, the living room light, boom, turns off. and the screen just keeps glitching on that scene where the bodies are flying in and like out. The skeletons are flying in and out. It starts glitching on that clip, and I was young at this time. I want to say I was 13, maybe even 12 still. So I start freaking out. And then, sorry, I just had to stop that notification. From behind me, I hear a deep, like, bellowing voice. It sounded like a grown man, like an evil grown man. Behind me, it started over here, and then it floats to this side, over closer to Luna. This voice says, "You're all next." You're all next. As the VHS player is glitching beyond freaking belief. Like, it's just glitching on the screen and the light turns off, and I hear a man's voice, "You're next," like zoom past me. Just on this specific scene, I was like, absolutely not. So I go to eject the VHS out of the VHS player. I'm like, nope, we're done. The light will not turn on, guys. I'm sitting over there, I'm flickering it on and off, nothing's happening, and it's so dark in the room. And I see in the corner of the room, it looked just briefly, like I barely saw it, but it was the embodiment of like Pete, just not his full features. It looked like something tall and a complete black shadow, nails hanging at the end of its arms. His arms are always pinned down like this, and his nails would just hang in the corner of the room. And I screamed, and then I flicked the light on again. It turns on. That apparition disappears. I run over to the VHS player. I'm trying to turn it off, and it will not eject this VHS. Like, it is stuck on it for some reason. I'm crying at this point because, again, I'm young, right? And I don't know what to do. This was so scary to me at the time. I start to cry, and the film in the VHS literally, like, I don't know if you guys remember using VHS players, starts unraveling, and the disc is just, or I'm sorry, not the disc, the VHS is completely ruined. Like, it did not want to spit it out of the VHS player. And then the TV barely worked the rest of the night. Anyways, long story short, not so short, Luna next to me is upset, and she says, "I think I want to go to bed now. You really ruined that for me, and I really liked watching that with Pete. Now he's just not happy." I already made this super long, but I have a couple more stories that I'm going to draft and post, so follow me if you want more scary babysitting horror stories that are all 100% true. Bye.